Hello, I'm Neil Quigley and welcome to the latest episode of my Blogcast. Hope you're good. I have had a fantastic few weeks. I am still friends with my first ever mate from school. We met on our very first day at primary school when we were just 4 years old, and we have been friends ever since. We sat next to each other all the way through primary school and all the way through secondary school in the lessons that we did together. When it came to GCSE options, we did give each other a bit of a break for a few lessons as we did choose a couple of different subjects. But if we were in the same class, we were sat together. And it is totally thanks to this man that I have a double A in GCSE science. He is now an engineer, always was a fantastic scientist, great with his hands, great at logistical problem solving. Basically, any practical part of science I did with him. He was so good at it, it kind of rubbed off on me, and I learnt a lot and managed to get top grades in double science, which I'm still quite proud of. Although I would also add, I did get an A in physical education, and he wasn't in that class. That one was all down to me. Thank you. Anyway, we've been friends now for over 44 years. We don't see each other as often as we would like. He now lives on the English-Welsh border. I still live in the same town where we went to school. My girlfriend and I went and saw my mate Steve and his wife Louise and their daughter Eleanor a few weeks ago. I always enjoy going up to see them. They live in a fantastic part of the world. Although the journey up there was not as smooth as it could have been, the plan was always that I was going to get a train to Northampton and meet Linda there. I finished work, got to Euston Station and found out all the trains were screwed. I couldn't seem to get any trains to Northampton, so I came up with a backup plan in that I did manage, albeit later than planned, to get a train to Birmingham. So Linda jumped back in her car and drove to Birmingham International train station, and she picked me up there and we continued the rest of the journey together by car. As it happened, despite the slight delay and me going straight to Birmingham, we didn't actually get there much later than we would have if we had managed to stick to the original plan. It was quite late when we arrived, so we just had a couple of drinks and a catch up. The next day, the plan all along had been to go to Chester Races. They have this wonderful house nestled in the hills in the Welsh countryside down a tiny little lane. It is fantastic. They have some decking up at the front of their house with a seating area where we had breakfast in the sunshine. The view from there is stunning. You just look over fields, you can hear a stream running by. Look further up, it's just wall-to-wall trees everywhere. You could just hear the noises of birds and wildlife all around you. I find it so relaxing and therapeutic because I grew up in the countryside. Linda, however, finds it quite disorientated and doesn't really like it. She grew up in the city and would much rather have traffic noise and the sound of sirens going past. After breakfast, we just potted around their lovely house for a bit and continued to chat and catch up, reminisce and talk about what we've been up to. Then it was time to head to Chester. We all managed to squeeze into one car and did the park and ride system there, which is very good, very efficient, lots of car parking spaces, and you never have to wait long for the bus, and it's very reasonably priced. As it happened, there was a bus stop right across the road from Chester Racecourse. Before the racing, Louise had booked us a table at Miller and Carter right next to the course, mainly, once again, due to my dietary requirements, because they are a celiac accredited company, which means I can eat safely and confidently there. Not only that, they did have my favourite gluten-free beer, Dora Dam, so I got to have a bottle of that as well with our 2-course meal. The staff in there were brilliant, looked after us really well. So with dinner done, we headed around the corner and down the road to the race course. It was the first time I'd been racing at Chester. I am a fan of the horse racing. I tend to go to most of the big horse racing festivals that I can get to, and I've certainly been to most of my local courses several times, but first time here. As we had my mate's daughter with us, we went in the family section, which was very reasonably priced and very, I thought, nicely done as well. You could have brought your car in and had a picnic. We obviously had decided against that, but you were free to wander around both sides of the track. Obviously you had to wait to make sure there was no racing going on when you crossed the course, but there were marshals in place to help with that. The one thing I would say about it is I have never seen such a big bar queue. In this section, they just had 2 mobile bars and the queues were huge. It took about 25 minutes to get served. Therefore, we didn't have many drinks while we were there. The racing was good and exciting. We were near the finish line, so we got to see really the best bit of the race. We all had at least one winner. In fact, I think everybody had more than one winner. It was just me who had the one. But we had a fantastic time. Then, when the racing was over, it was back via the park and ride bus to the car park and back to my mate's house. The weather was still lovely, so once again, we located ourselves outside on their decking. As I was sat there, I saw something I've never actually seen before in person, only on TV. Suddenly, a shepherd arrived with his sheepdog and started rounding up all his sheep. It was really impressive. Watching it on TV, you don't really understand how many sheep there are, the distance those sheep cover, and also how quick and agile the sheepdog is. The speed of it as well to get around and herd those sheep exactly where the farmer wanted them to be. It was amazing. The dog got them in such a tight formation and managed to persuade them to go straight into the farmer's truck, and away they went. I don't know why, but it really made me happy seeing that. As it got a bit chillier, we relocated inside and I found myself playing a game with their daughter, as I often do. Whenever I go to friends' houses and they have children, more often than not, I end up playing some games with them, probably because I'm just a big kid myself. We played Jenga for a bit in the living room on a carpet just to make it extra hard. I am very competitive and I do not like losing, so I'm not one of those people who will take it easy and not try just because I'm playing a child. I want to win. That said, however, I never really stood a chance. As I said earlier, my mate is an engineer and his brain works very well when it comes to construction and design. His daughter has obviously inherited those skills because we played 4 games of Jenga and she beat me every time. In fact, by the time it got to the 4th game, she was taking her move and then advising me which block to remove straight away. She was basically playing for both of us. So I guess in that game, she couldn't really lose. We had a fantastic weekend. Slight downside of the journey home. The traffic was bad, so a journey that should have taken us about 3 hours took us nearly 4.5. It was still worth it to catch up with Steve, Louise and Eleanor. Had a brilliant time. Recently, 2 of our friends have got engaged. It was very slick how the gentleman proposed. Basically, he booked a surprise appointment at Tiffany's, the jewellers, when they were on holiday in New York, proposed and got the ring at that point. And the ring is amazing. I have seen it. It looks great. They recently had an engagement party. So Linda and I went up there for the weekend. We had booked an apartment to stay in with another couple who we know who were also going along to the party. It was my turn to book the accommodation. I must say, accidentally and inadvertently, I managed to book an absolutely amazing place to stay. Before I got there, I did have more train trouble though. The party was in Congleton, and that's where we were staying for the Friday and Saturday night. Linda had the afternoon off on the Friday, so she had already driven up there earlier in the afternoon. The original plan was there was going to be a pre-engagement party on the Friday at somebody's house, but it was a garden party. Basically, the weather forecast for very heavy rain had put paid to that. So the new plan was we were just going to have a few drinks around town. I knew everybody would have started long before I even left work. Once again, I arrived at Euston with my pre-planned train journey, only to be scuppered once again by my train from London leaving 35 minutes late. The reason that was a problem was I had to get a connection at Stoke, and those connections only ran once an hour. So once I'd missed that, I was going to be screwed. So I spent most of the journey to Stoke online trying to work out how I could get to where I need to get to quicker, and in the end it looked like I was going to have to wait for the later train and get to my destination about an hour and 15 minutes later than I planned to. And then I suddenly thought, do you know what, it's Friday night. Why waste this time? Let's try and get a taxi from Stoke to Congleton. I had Googled it and found out it was about a 20-25 minute drive and got the rough price of what a taxi would be. So eventually I found the taxi rank. It was empty, so I got a taxi straight away. I did inquire about a taxi to my destination and tried to play dumb and find out a price. To be fair, the driver offered me the lower end of the pricing structure that I'd looked up online. So I said yes, hopped in the cab. As I arrived into Congleton about 9:30, I messaged Linda to find out where they were. It turns out they were in a bar just round the corner. So as I got the taxi there, I got out of the taxi and paid him. Then I looked at my phone only to see a message saying they'd moved to a different bar. Just as I was trying to Google where that bar was, I just caught the tail end of our group walking down a street. So I quickly caught them up. I managed to get to them just as they walked into the bar. I said earlier it was me who booked the accommodation for the weekend. I had found out only that afternoon that it was above a bar. It turns out they'd gone to the bar below where we were staying, which was perfect for me because I had a weekend bag and my work bag with me, which meant I could drop it upstairs into the apartment and then come down and have a drink with everybody else. It worked absolutely perfectly. This flat, by the way, above this bar was astonishing. It was Georgian. It was so big. The lounge was huge. It had an outside decking area, 2 decent-sized bedrooms, big bathroom, looked great, and it was above a bar. So we really landed on our feet there. The plan for the Saturday and the day of the engagement party was to try and stay out of the pubs as long as possible. That was the aim. We thought it might be a bit rude to turn up at their party already completely hammered. Prior to the weekend, there was talk of going to see an attraction, maybe going to a museum, maybe going on a nice long walk somewhere. None of these came to fruition in the end, so we managed to have a leisurely morning and breakfast inside the apartment before heading out into Congleton to go shopping was the plan. So we had a good walk round. We did have a look in quite a few shops. In fact, I came very close to buying myself a pair of shoes, but didn't in the end. We thought we'd done exceptionally well and we're really proud of ourselves for going shopping and not heading straight to the pub when by about 2 o'clock we ended up, yep, you've guessed it, in a pub. I was quite pleased to find, though, they did have gluten-free Peroni, so I could have a bottle of lager, which I think is a good way of pacing yourself. We then went straight to another pub. after we'd finished our drinks in there. Again, they served gluten-free Peroni. I had already been warned by the couple whose party it was that unfortunately the food that was being supplied, there wouldn't be any gluten-free options. They did say I could order a pizza in or get my own gluten-free food, but as we were at a pub, I managed to find some 5 beans vegetarian nachos which I could have. So I thought I'd just order those and that will get me through the night. The only option they had on these was the sharer option, and I've shared nachos with Linda before and we've got through them in no time at all. So I thought I'll be fine, I can handle one of those by myself. As it turned out, it was the biggest bowl of nachos and 5 bean chili that I think I've ever seen. It was huge. I did, however, complete it pretty much all by myself. I did feel a little bit too full when we left that pub, but we did then go back to get ready for the engagement party. We had about an hour just to relax, to chill and get ourselves changed. As it turned out, the place where the party was being held was a 30-second walk from where we were staying, so we didn't have much of a commute to get there. Our friends had hired out an entire bar for the evening, a Harry Potter themed cocktail bar, which was really good. I do not know anything about Harry Potter. I've never read the books. I've never seen any of the films. I mean, I'm aware of the characters and the actors who were in the films. When we walked in, the first thing you notice is it is decorated a bit like Hogwarts with lots of wizardry stuff everywhere. Also, next to every table, they have a big TV screen that is linked to a Nintendo. So you have games machines on every single table that you can play if you wish. They also do their own special Harry Potter themed cocktails. More about them a bit later on. The other amazing thing about this party, and fair play to our mates for this one, is it was a free bar for the entire evening. So I eased myself into things with a couple of glasses of Prosecco. They had hired a singer to perform throughout the evening. She was great, did loads of well-known songs, and fair play to her. It was one of those difficult gigs where the first part of our act, it was basically background music. We were all enjoying the music, but we were meeting people for the first time and catching up with people we'd not seen for a while. So obviously there was lots of chatting going on. As the evening progressed, everybody had a few drinks. I got to meet my friend's mum and dad and sister for the first time. Had a nice chat with them. Everybody gets the buffet when the singer takes the break. I don't, of course, because there was nothing I could have, but I chose not to order a pizza in because I was still full from all my nachos. Linda convinced me to have one of their Harry Potter cocktails, mainly because she'd seen somebody else have it and thought it was perfect for me. It wasn't necessarily perfect alcohol-wise. However, it was my favourite colour, bright blue, so I gave in and ordered one. It came, as some of their cocktails do, with some dry ice on top. So as I was carrying it across the pub back to my table, there was a haze coming off it, and whatever was also in it, the dry ice was just making it bubble up, so it was bubbling over like it was a big cauldron. It was also cauldron shaped and bright blue. It tasted very sweet and I did enjoy it, but you wouldn't want more than one of them. I did get my picture taken with it and it was good fun, worth having. And all the cocktails they do in that place have been designed by the manager and the staff. I was having a bit of a chat to him at one point. He bought that bar with no experience of running the bar whatsoever, just fancied a challenge, worked out how to do it, made up all the cocktails in an afternoon with his staff, and I just did a random tasting and trial and error, putting things together. And I must say, done a spectacular job. Once the singer had finished her second set, the party was not quite over. We still had about 45 minutes left. As it then turned out, this place also had a built-in karaoke system. One of their other friends got up first and did Like a Virgin by Madonna. Then all of a sudden, everybody starts chanting my name. Now, I cannot sing, unfortunately. I wish I could. I just am pretty much tone deaf. That said, I'm never one to shy away from a challenge, and any opportunity to stand up in front of a group of people with a microphone, I always take. So I was straight up, bounding across to the karaoke machine, trying to find out what songs were on there. I had to think on my feet, wasn't really sure what to do, and then I thought, I know, I'll give him some Springsteen. So I managed to find Dancing in the Dark and gave that my best shot. There were good moments where I may have had the right words at the right time. Occasionally, I might even have had the right key, but we got through it. They seemed to enjoy it. The audience was singing along. However, I did try and get Linda to come up and dance with me at the point in the video where Bruce Springsteen brings up Courtney Cox, but she was having none of it. Once I was done, I started chanting the name of one of the hosts of the party, because she does have a really good voice, which I accidentally discovered when we done karaoke at a house party together. So I convinced her to sing. She did a song from Wicked, which sounded great, and then Linda ended up being pushed forward to do a song. She was very clever, I thought. She decided to do the theme tune from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It is very short and it's basically a rap. She did a great job. I did take a video of her doing it, which she was not very happy about, so I was made to delete it almost immediately. I just did one of her just in case she had one of me, but she didn't, so we're all good and nobody needs to see either of our performances. We thought the evening was over, but the people who live next door to our friends who were getting engaged invited us back for an after party at their place. Now, I am never one to turn down the chance to go to an after show party, so we nipped back to where we were staying to grab some drinks to take along and to freshen up, then did the 20-minute walk to the neighbour's house. I must say it was a lovely house, big kitchen, even bigger garden, and the host was very good in that the second it looked like you got halfway down your drink, it was suddenly back to being full again, which meant we all drank way more than maybe we intended to, but it was a great night. Congratulations to Julia Murray on their engagement. We got the wedding to look forward to in a couple of years from now. I am a big Elvis Presley fan, and during the lockdown days when we were in for months on end, didn't have much to do, I basically ended up buying myself an Elvis Presley white Las Vegas style jumpsuit online from a fancy dress shop. So it's not, as I would like, an actual complete replica of what the king would have worn. I couldn't afford one of those. They were thousands of pounds, but I haven't ruled out getting one in the future. Also during the lockdown, I was doing a weekly pop quiz, all of which you can now find on my YouTube channel, by the way, if you fancy checking them out. For one of the episodes, I wore my Elvis jumpsuit to present the whole thing, just for a bit of a laugh. Now, I'm not totally sure if they're joking or not, but our friends that are getting engaged are having a very small pre-wedding day gathering the night before, and one of them has asked me to dress up in my Elvis Presley outfit and sing a few Elvis songs. Now, the problem is I can't sing. However, I really do like dressing up in that outfit. So I might try and broker a compromise deal if they are serious and not messing about, as I hope. And I'll wear the jumpsuit, but I will mime to a couple of Elvis songs. That's probably the best I can offer, and it will make the whole performance a lot better and easier on people's ears. The other task Julie has set me ahead of the wedding is she wants on her wedding day to do a duet with Michael Bull. She has got qualifications in music and has a fantastic voice, so I know she can sing. My only problem is trying to get in contact with Michael Bull, hoping he's available and would actually be prepared to turn up and do it. Next day we all got up and had breakfast together before it was time to head home. My turn to drive this weekend. The traffic wasn't quite as bad. We got home in 3.5 hours, but it was fun driving Linda's car again, having not done that for a while. It is an electric car, which is always hard to adjust to when I've been driving my petrol manual, particularly because it's like a giant dodgem in that you only really need to put your foot on the accelerator because that will speed up the car, and when you take it off it kind of brakes automatically, so you hardly need to use your brakes at all. A few years ago now, with some friends, I went to see Kelly Jones perform his entire album at Alexandra Palace. That was fantastic. I've always been a fan of his band, the Stereophonics, but for whatever reason, had not seen them live. A couple of weekends ago, we went to Cardiff to see him and his band in action, invited by some friends of ours who had been many times before. I had never been to Cardiff. Our friends this time had booked us the Airbnb accommodation, so it was their turn to do that. Linda and I headed down on the train on the Friday night. It should have been perfect. We'd worked it out that we were due to arrive in Cardiff at about 20 to 10. It would be while the concert was still on. It would be quiet. We'd grab a taxi, pick up some drinks, meet our mates at the Airbnb. Yep, there was a delay to our train, predictably, so we got in about 45 minutes later than we planned. Exactly the same time that Friday's Stereophonics gig was kicking out. So, as you could imagine, it was carnage trying to get out of the train station, and then we were like, well, we really need to bring some drinks and snacks, but I don't know how we're going to get back. It's a 30-minute walk to the Airbnb. Neither of us fancied that. So in the end, we saw a taxi rank, and the queue was just starting to get longer and longer, so we thought we'd better get ourselves in the taxi rank and just get out of the town centre and try and get to where we're staying. That worked out okay in the end. Our mates had got there probably about 10-15 minutes before us. They had managed to pick up some drinks and snacks, so we had some Prosecco and some crisps, living the high life on a Friday night. It was perfect, to be fair. Next day was the day of the concert and a chance to go exploring in Cardiff, a place where, as I said, I'd never been, so I was quite looking forward to that. We decided to walk into the city as it was a gloriously hot day. Took about 30 minutes. We then went to have what became breakfast, lunch and dinner, just one big meal at, in the end, Prezzo, because yes, it was me choosing the restaurants to make sure they were celiac accredited and I could eat. I had a huge pizza and their chocolate cake, which is the only gluten-free option for dessert, but it's really nice. I thought I'd treat myself because I figured that might be the only thing I eat for the rest of the day, and I wasn't far off on that, to be fair. Once we'd finished our food, the ladies in the group went off to do some shopping and the gentlemen headed off to the pub. The people I was there with had been to Cardiff a few times before, so they knew where to go. So first of all, we went to what was my mate's favourite pub in Cardiff called Tiny Rebel. He really likes his craft beer and they've got a great selection in there. No gluten-free beer that I fancied risking, so I played it safe and went for a cider, but it was right opposite the Principality Stadium where the gig later on was going to be. So that was my first look at that, and it does look impressive from the outside. From there, we went to another pub, which was just a little bit further round the corner, and had a few more drinks in there. We did find ourselves a table, which was great, and I was quite sensible in that I was just drinking halves at this point, and we were having regular glasses of tap water as well. It was a very hot day. The atmosphere was building. It was quite exciting. Then we decided to head into the stadium to get ready for the gig. Predictably, our entrance was right round the other side, so we had to do a bit of walking. I was very impressed with how slick it was getting into the stadium, and also the bar setup there was great. Lots of bars, and we got served relatively quickly. And then we went and got our spot in the audience. We'd paid for standing tickets, so we got relatively near the front, had a good view of the stage and could see what was going on. As we arrived, the support act, the Blossoms, were just starting their set. That's the first time I've seen them, and I was really impressed. I thought they were fantastic. Their frontman, Tom Ogden, is what I would call a proper frontman. He's got the look, he's got the clothes, he had his dark glasses on, strutted around, had the attitude. I thought he was brilliant. The band were really good. They, as they did at Glastonbury for their song Gary, brought out their huge fiberglass gorilla. The thing that made me laugh about that is looking at the rest of their stage kit. That must be the most difficult thing that they have to lug from gig to gig. I reckon it's so big they have to hire a special van just for that, which sounds mad, but I did enjoy them. Obviously, after the Blossoms finished their set, we had the normal wait while the stage was reset and the sound check done for the main headline act. Then out came Kelly and the rest of the Stereophonics. I thought they were fantastic. I've always liked his voice. I do think it's got a great quality and tone to it. They played all of the hits. Obviously, stuff off the new album and the most recent albums, but they didn't miss a hit. They played it all, closing the night with Dakota. It was all very well done, very slick. They put on an absolutely fantastic performance. I was really impressed with the sound quality in the stadium as well. I thought it sounded excellent for both bands. So we had a fantastic night. After that, we managed to find a pub that wasn't too busy, not too far away from the stadium, which after a gig there, I think is quite a good achievement. Again, I was in luck. They had gluten-free Peroni, so I could have a few bottles of that before we walked home and had our next meal, which was a bag of crisps and another glass of Prosecco. We were living the dream that weekend. Another great gig experience though. All we needed to do on the Sunday was get home, so we got a lift off our friends into Cardiff city centre and then headed for the train station. The train journey down had been a bit cramped, had been a bit noisy, had been a bit hot, and we were over half an hour late, which means we could claim our delay on our tickets, which meant we got about £25 each back. We then looked up how much an upgrade would be to first class on the way back, and as it turned out, if you took the money we were getting back into consideration, for an extra £7 we could travel from Cardiff back to London in first class. So we took up that option, and I must say it was one of the best decisions we made in ages. Got on the train, absolutely no problem at all. Nice and quiet, only a few people in the carriage. They bring you tea several times through the journey and give you a snack box, most of which just happened to be gluten-free, so I didn't really miss out at all. It was such a lovely, nice journey, completely different to our journey to Cardiff on the Friday night. If I could afford it, I'd do first class train travel every time. It was, I have to admit, much more enjoyable. When we got back to London, because it was such a nice glorious day, we decided to extend the weekend slightly and have a few drinks in the sunshine. There is a market hall area in Paddington, so we thought we'd try there. It's got a selection of bars and lots of different food outlets, and we found a nice table in the sun. They had an app so you could order from your phone to the table. They had gluten-free Stella, so I thought I'd give that a try for the first time. The plan was just to have one drink there in the sunshine. It was so nice and relaxing. We had another one, and then when we headed back into the Oxford Street area ready to get our trains home, we then ended up having another drink as well, just to celebrate what had been a great weekend. I would definitely go back to Cardiff again and watch a gig at the Principality Stadium. Linda and I had really wanted to go and see the new production of Oliver at the Gielgud Theatre. It opened last year. The tickets, it's fair to say, were quite expensive. So for her birthday earlier in the year, Linda asked either for money or for theatre vouchers so she could put them all towards getting tickets so we could go and see Oliver. That's exactly what happened. Her friends and family were very generous. So with those donations and a small amount of money from us as well, we secured ourselves 2 tickets to go and see the show last Saturday. We thought we'd make a bit of a day of it because to me it felt like a extension of a birthday celebration, as it's basically what she asked people to get her for her birthday. So to make that happen, we booked a hotel in central London just for the night and also book somewhere to have dinner. If you're going to have a day out at the theatre, if you can, you need to do it properly, surely. Once we got to the hotel and got checked in and had a look at our room, it just so happened we were put in one of the hotel's newly refurbished rooms. In fact, we were the first people to stay in it. So it did have a lovely, clean, fresh, new smell to it. And I will be honest, I thought they did a very good job with it. So we spent a bit of time relaxing in there, then headed out for a pre-dinner drink, basically just to give ourselves something to do until it was time for our dinner reservation, which was at Cote, because of course that is one of the restaurants on my celiac accredited list, so we decided to eat there. I like it there. I get quite a good selection of food. I think the food and service in there is always good. We arrived there dead on time, seated straight away. We had a discussion earlier on before dinner what we should drink, and we decided we'd keep the special occasion vibe going because we shared a bottle of champagne over our 3-course dinner. We gave ourselves plenty of time so we could have a leisurely dinner before we had to head to the theatre. There's one more thing about the night at the theatre I've not told you. Linda actually managed to get us a box seat. So the two of us had a box to ourselves, which came with a butler. So feeling rather important, we arrived at the theatre, got the tickets checked on the door. The person who checked our tickets inside then radioed up to warn someone we were on our way. We then got upstairs to that person. They showed us to our box. Then they sent in the butler who took our drinks order for the interval. Can't fault the service. It was fantastic. The view from the box was great. We were right over the stage. We did have to lean forward a bit to see all of the stage, but we could see the whole performance and we felt very, very close to the action, which was great. Plus, there's lots of room in a box and there's only 2 normal movable seats, so you can position yourself exactly where you want for comfort and to see everything. Obviously, one of the first things we did when we got into our box was take pictures of the view and of ourselves having our drinks and looking around. Well, you have to, don't you? I thought the show itself was absolutely brilliant. I have seen the film version of Oliver many times, but somehow I'd never got round to seeing it at the theatre, so it was my first time. It is a musical I really like, and I knew it would be good because it is once again a Cameron Mackintosh production, and he does these things very, very well. The cast were all fantastic. The Artful Dodger was absolutely perfect, I thought. The person who probably stole the show for me was Simon Lipkin, who played Fagin. I thought he did it in his own way, possibly brought it slightly more up to date, while also honouring the way Ron Moody played it in certain parts as well. Worked, I thought, really well. Philip Franks from Darling Buds of May fame was playing Mr. Brownlow. He was fantastic. Everyone was great. And it just seemed like there was familiar song after familiar song. We all know the songs from that show so well, and they just seemed to come almost one after each other at one point. It was pure bliss. The first half absolutely flew by. I did have to do my usual trick of going to the toilet at the interval. However, I made it back before the butler turned up with our drinks. And because it was a special occasion, a Saturday night, I also had some mint and chocolate chip ice cream as well. It was so nice just sitting in our box, all the space around us, having our drinks and having a chat at the interval. The problem we've now got is I don't think we want to go to the theatre unless we're in a box, which would make most theatre trips a lot more expensive. I think we'll have to get back to reality fairly soon on that one. Second half was as good as the first. They have based the storyline on the film version rather than the original book in this particular production. And one of the best bits for me was when the cast came out to take their well-deserved applause and standing ovation at the end, and we had a bit of a sing-song to Consider Yourself. That was great. The whole theatre was rocking and singing along. If you do get a chance to go to London and see this production of Oliver, you will not be disappointed. We had such a good time. We were on such a high. We then had to go somewhere else. So we went to a wine bar we know, just off Leicester Square. It's called the Cork and Bottle. If you see it from the outside, it just looks like the front to a very old shop. But if you go downstairs, it's basically a French bistro. It's well hidden, but when you get down there, it is good. They have an amazing selection of wines and cheese down there. We like it a lot, but it's one of those places we never get to quite as often as we'd like to. Anyway, we did have a couple of glasses of wine to round off the evening in there before we headed back to our hotel. That's it for this edition. Just a reminder that you can hear my radio show Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4 on radio9springs.com. Take care, look after yourselves and each other, please, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.